The first time we met, I was on Zoom. It's actually really funny. Blake, so I was zooming in with Blake and Justin, and they were in the same room. And Blake was like eating some lunch, and we were having a full blown conversation. And I was asking Blake questions, and she was telling me like stories and anecdotes, and being very enthusiastic. And I was like, man, she's just not listening to anything I'm saying. She's not acknowledging anything I'm saying. And so she thought I was frozen, and I thought she was ignoring me. It turned out I was on mute the whole time.
They had no idea their private information was being targeted. No notice, no warning, no chance to stop it. The first time we met, I was on Zoom with Blake and Justin. They were in the same room, and Blake was eating lunch. We were having a full EEPS conversation. I kept asking Blake questions, and she was excited, telling stories and little moments from her life. But I felt like she wasn't hearing me. It was strange, like she wasn't reacting to anything I said. She thought I had frozen. I thought she was ignoring me. But the truth? I was on mute the entire time. Hey friends, it's Katie from Without, a crystal ball. Welcome back to my channel. Yesterday, Brian Friedman and Blake Lively's lawyers spoke to Deadline, Page 6, and Us Weekly about a subpoena and what it really means. I mentioned this at the end of my last video, but today we need to ask, what did Brian Friedman actually mean? What could it mean for Blake Lively? Because right now, things are not looking good. To help explain, Brian Friedman and Justin Baldoni say the lawsuit, Van Zandt Inc. versus Doe defendants, wasn't about justice. It was about access. The case was filed by the company owned by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. No real defendant was named. There was no clear legal fight, just a vague claim. And buried inside was a subpoena. According to the Daily Mail, it wasn't even signed by a judge. The case wasn't assigned to a judge or a clerk. Blake Lively hasn't even shared the subpoena with Baldoni. This strange case may have been filed after Stephanie Jones got the phone and records of her employee, Jennifer Abel. Jennifer quit and sent her resignation letter in July. Jones then fired her on August 21st, the same day Jennifer gave her phone to Jones. That same day, court records show Leslie Sloan told Melissa Nathan, "I saw the texts. You're going to be sued." But here's the problem. Stephanie had a non-disclosure agreement. She couldn't legally share private Wayfair information with others unless a court gave her permission. She also had a contract promising to keep client info secret. It looks like they filed this fake lawsuit to fix the illegal sharing and protect Stephanie from being sued by Belden, Wayfair, and Abel. The issue? There were no named defendants. Belden and Abel weren't told. They didn't know they're private. Info was being targeted, no heads up, no way to fight back. Abel's name wasn't listed, but her phone was the focus. The phone wasn't named in the case, but the subpoena asked for its data. It wanted records from December 2022 to now, the same timeline Blake Lively used when she tried to get subpoenas in her federal case. That time, Judge Lehman shut her down. Now, it looks worse because it seems like Blake tried to get that same evidence using this Van Zandt Inc. case, but again, the court said no. Friedman's team says this was done in bad faith. They say it's a serious misuse of the legal system, and they're right. This isn't just a shady move. It breaks the system. Subpoenas are powerful, but there are rules. You must tell the person being targeted. You have to give them a chance to speak up. But when a celebrity-backed company files a lawsuit without a real fight and uses it to grab someone's private info, that's not smart law. It's a legal trap. It shows how the court system, in the wrong hands, can be twisted, not to protect people, but to quietly take their rights. His name wasn't even in the case title, but he was the one they were going after. Jen Abel's phone was the target, yet it wasn't mentioned in the lawsuit, but the subpoena clearly asked for that phone. It also asked for records starting December 1st, 2022, up to now, the same time frame Blake Lively used when she tried to get subpoenas in her federal case. But that time, Judge Lehman shut her down. That denial now looks even worse for Blake, since it seems she was trying to get the same proof for her complaint using this Van Zandt Inc. case. But again, the judge said no, so she doesn't have permission from this court to get those records. Justin's team says the move was done in bad faith and was an extreme misuse of the system. They're absolutely right. This isn't just a legal trick. It shows the system failing. Subpoenas are serious tools, but there are rules. You're supposed to inform the person you're targeting. You must give them a chance to defend themselves. But when a company backed by celebrities files a case without a real opponent and uses it to collect private info from someone not involved, that's not strategy. It's a trap. It shows how the court system, in the wrong hands, can be twisted. Not to protect people's rights, but to quietly take them away. This wasn't about law. It was about watching someone. If you get info by cutting out someone's rights, the court can come after you. Justin's legal team has made bold claims lately, but yesterday's statement stood out. That's what I want to talk about, because it points to new filings coming soon, and not the ones you expect. Brian Friedman made a new statement yesterday. It hints that Blake Lively could face more than just claims. Here's what he said. Miss Lively and Mr. Reynolds' company, Van Zandt, had nothing to do with this case, and they knew it. This fake lawsuit was created to get subpoena power without anyone watching, and that stopped my clients from challenging the purpose, fairness, and reach of that subpoena. Nothing about this is normal. Lawyers must be honest with the court. They can't file fake lawsuits with no real reason. This was done in bad faith and is a major misuse of the legal system. That's a strong message, and for those not familiar with legal terms, let me break it down. There are many signs this was done in bad faith. First, none of the cease and desist letters sent by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds to Justin Baldoni and Wayfair mentioned Van Zandt Inc. as being involved. They did name other companies linked to Blake and Ryan, like Mint Mobile, but why would Mint Mobile care? They also listed Betty Buzz, Betty Booze, Blake Brown Aviation Gin, and Maximum Effort, but never Van Zandt Inc. Another issue is the lawyer who filed this so-called fake lawsuit, Samantha Katze. She's not listed among the many lawyers who filed to represent Blake and Ryan. In fact, Blake just added 2 new lawyers in her Texas case, Laura Prather and Michael Lambert. Both are based in Austin and are now trying to join this New York case. Why? We don't know yet. But Blake already has many lawyers listed, and none of them are Samantha Katze. So here's what we're left with. Samantha Katze is not part of this case, but she sent out the subpoena for the Van Zandt case. Van Zandt isn't named in any cease and desists, and Van Zandt isn't named in the current case either. Too many red flags. But what could happen next? If these claims turn out to be true, there could be big consequences, like fines or legal penalties. Here's what might happen. The court could issue sanctions or dismiss the case. Filing a case in bad faith can lead to punishment under Rule 11 of the federal court rules. They could shut down the case, fine the team, or even make them pay Baldoni's legal fees for dealing with a fake lawsuit. They might also throw out the evidence that came from the subpoena. Or worse, call the whole case a joke and get rid of it completely. Did you hear that word? Malicious? That's how serious this could get. Now, the judge might throw out the case as part of the process, but her side can't ask for a dismissal because they already answered the claim. However, they can file for something called a summary judgment. We'll get to that soon. Another risk for her is an abuse of process claim. That's a type of legal action you can take when someone uses the court system to secretly go after someone for reasons that have nothing to do with real justice. If they can show the lawsuit was just a trick to collect info on him, she might owe him damages for misusing the system. There's also spoliation and privacy issues. If her team broke the rules while gathering info, like hiding or changing documents, or if they crossed lines to get private data about Balan, that could lead to serious problems. Spoliation claims could apply if they deleted or tampered with anything. And let's not forget, Judge Lehman already slammed her request for records as an invasion of privacy. That included phone records, texts, and other documents from December 1, 2022 to now. He said it was too broad. She tried to do the same thing with Janelle's phone, asking for all records from the same dates. That pattern could hurt her. Blake might also get hit with brand new lawsuits. One could be for abusing the legal process, if she really used the case just to dig up info on him without giving him a fair shot to respond. He could also sue her for defamation or privacy violations if anything they found was used to hurt his image or shared in a harmful way. And if her lawyers cross the line, this could lead to ethics problems too. Filing a lawsuit without a real reason can lead to being reported, possibly punished, or even losing their legal license. Now, about the legal motions that could come up. What could his team do next? If the court thinks the evidence was gathered unfairly, the first thing they might try is a motion to strike. That means removing all the subpoena evidence from the case. It's one of the easiest ways to fight back against info that was gathered without telling him. Since the Van Zandt case wasn't even about him, and he wasn't warned, they could argue the subpoena was sneaky and in bad faith. If the judge agrees, that evidence could be thrown out. And without that evidence, her whole case could fall apart. That's a big deal. Another motion they might file is for summary judgment. That move asks the court to rule in his favor because there's no strong proof backing the claims. His lawyers would say that without the subpoenaed info, she has no real case. And that matters, because while she says this is about sexual harassment, what she's really upset about is the supposed smear campaign. But if that smear campaign claim doesn't hold up, she can't fall back on the harassment stuff, especially since she didn't speak up at the time. And there are time limits for making those kinds of claims in federal court. So if the court sides with him and grants the summary judgment, that could end the whole thing. It would be a huge loss for her, and it would show that the case was based on flawed evidence from the start. There's one more legal hit they could go for: a motion for sanctions. This is where things get especially dangerous for her. That move would target the shady use of subpoenas and the way the case may have been set up just to hurt him. If the court agrees she twisted the rules, there could be real punishments, like forcing her to pay his legal bills. This kind of motion would send a loud, clear message. Trying to bend the system behind closed doors has a price. If the court rules against her, she might not only face major fines, but her image could take a serious hit. This could lead to serious criminal charges for obstruction of justice. And I'm not exaggerating. If they went after someone's private info and misused the court system, federal law allows charges to be filed. Both she and Ryan could face this. I know it sounds extreme, but stay with me, because here's how it could happen. If Vans and Inc. issued the subpoena without honest intent and instead used it to dig into Ballon's life for a hidden reason, it could be seen as interfering with justice, especially since the Vanzan lawsuit had no real defendants. If it was a fake case with no actual legal fight, it may have only been created to get subpoena power. And the issue they claimed to sue over? Completely made up. The subpoena went after Ballon's messages, along with Abels's and Wayfair's, none of whom had anything to do with that made-up case. And none of them were told about the subpoena. If they did this on purpose, to skip the normal steps and secretly collect info for a federal case without warning Ballon, that's a huge red flag. That move alone could be seen as blocking the justice process because it stopped him from fighting back or protecting his privacy. What really matters here is why they did it. If the subpoena was fake, just a trick to dig up dirt, that intent could prove obstruction. Another problem is they never told Ballon, Abel, or Wayfair that the subpoena was even happening. That's a big deal. Not warning someone when you subpoena their records breaks the rules. It also denies them a fair chance to fight it. Ballon never got to say those records didn't matter or were too personal to share. If Lively and Reynolds knew this and still got those messages in secret, it could show they tried to block him from defending his rights. And that's obstruction. And there's more. If this whole thing was just a sneaky move to collect private info, not a real legal claim, it's even worse. The court system exists to solve real problems. Using it just to gather info for another case or to gain power over someone is wrong. It weakens the whole legal process. If they used Vanzan to file this fake case just so they could unlock subpoena power and see Ballon and Abel's messages, it could be seen as purposely twisting justice for their own gain. Ballon has already said this was all a backdoor move. He said they never told him. He said his rights were ignored. That all points to a possible criminal investigation. If obstruction of justice is proven, the consequences are no joke. It's a federal crime. That means big fines, prison time, or both, depending on how serious the court sees it. If the court believes Lively and Reynolds knowingly used the legal system to secretly get his messages, they could be charged. These charges could become part of the federal case, especially if it's proven they crossed the line to collect evidence in a dishonest way. In federal court, hiding things, breaking rules, or violating someone's rights, those are massive problems. Not warning Ballon, targeting his private info, knowing full well it was his, that's a serious violation. And even if no criminal charges are filed, let's say a prosecutor passes on it, there could still be serious fallout. The court could hit them with sanctions for misusing the legal system. They might have to pay heavy fines, cover Ballon's legal costs, and face punishment for their lawyers. That could mean being disbarred, losing their right to practice law, and being blocked from using that subpoenaed evidence in court. All of this could hit them hard. If the court agrees it was a fraud, the legal and personal damage could be massive. They may have tried to get his messages in a way that breaks the law, and that's a big deal. To prove this, they'd need to show that the subpoena was part of a plan to block him from fighting back, or to get documents that didn't belong in the case. It's pretty obvious Belden's messages had nothing to do with Van Zandt's case. They'd also need to prove that not telling Baldoni about the subpoena broke the rules that exist to protect people from unfair legal moves. They would have to prove the purpose was to block his legal rights and twist the court process. So, if it turns out they did this on purpose and knew it was wrong, to dig for info or mess with the system, they could face real consequences, including criminal charges for obstruction of justice. Those charges would depend on how bad their actions were, how much they misused the legal process, and what their secret goals were. But this isn't just about Baldoni. It's about holding people like Lively and Reynolds responsible when they act like the rules don't apply to them. When they use court tools to spy on someone, forget the sexual harassment claims, set them all aside. Even if any of that were true, which I don't believe, it still doesn't give anyone the right to invade someone's privacy using a fake subpoena. No matter how rich or famous, no one has the right to break the law or take away someone's rights. So far, there's no proof that Baldoni, Wayfair, or anyone else did anything illegal. But now, we are seeing signs that Blake and Ryan might have gone to extreme lengths, maybe even breaking federal law, just to go after Belden. That's a huge deal. And while this still has to be proven, people need to understand it's a real possibility. That's why some believe Stephanie Jones may have brought in a criminal defense lawyer. Up to now, most lawyers involved have only worked civil cases. If criminal attorneys are involved, they'd likely be working quietly behind the scenes. And if the FBI is investigating, we wouldn't know. The FBI doesn't announce their cases. They don't say, "We're looking into Blake and Ryan." That would tip people off. It could lead to people destroying evidence. It could cause witnesses to be pressured. That's why they work in secret. But based on some of Friedman's public comments, it sounds like talks about a possible criminal case might be happening behind closed doors. That shows just how serious this could be. So when her team keeps saying, "This is normal," or "We didn't do anything wrong," think about what the lawsuit actually said. That lawsuit claimed she didn't know who was involved. It didn't name any defendants. It didn't clearly say what was revealed about her that hurt her image. It didn't even mention Justin Baldoni. And Baldoni has zero connection to Van Zandt Inc. That's what truly matters. Earlier, I touched on what the punishment could be if they're found guilty of obstruction. So let's talk about that. The biggest penalty is prison. It's a felony under U.S. law. If someone is convicted, they could go to federal prison. How long depends on what exactly they did and which law they broke. The main law is under 18 U.S. Code 1503. That allows up to 10 years in prison if found guilty. And if it involved things like destroying evidence or threatening witnesses, the sentence could be shorter or longer based on how serious it was. They could also face big fines. That could be thousands or even millions, depending on how much harm they caused. Instead of jail, they might get probation. That's still serious. It means being closely watched, maybe for months or years. And finally, there's something called restitution. If their actions hurt someone's finances, like messing up a business case or stopping a lawsuit from being settled, they could be forced to pay for the damage. I knew that when they were in jail, they couldn't hurt me anymore, and I finally felt safe. So, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just here to explain what could be happening, what options there might be, and what Baldwin's team might be thinking. What's going through Brian Friedman's head? I don't know if this will turn into a criminal case, but what I do know is, in all the years I've worked as an investigative journalist, I've seen some truly awful things. I've seen wealthy, powerful people do terrible things just because they could. Greed, money, and control often lead to corruption and crime. And when someone has too much power and no one stops them, they start thinking they're above the law. There were times in my work where I felt totally hopeless. There was one case I followed for over 4 years, from indictment to conviction. During those years, the person under indictment scared me daily. I had called it out from the beginning. I saw how this person, with a big platform, was tricking the public and lying and hurting people. And I wasn't wrong. When that person was finally convicted, it was like I could finally breathe again. That's what I imagine Justin Baldwin and the people at Wayfair are feeling. They're facing someone who acts like a cruel narcissist, someone who will do anything to destroy others. These people get angry over nothing and go too far, and we may never understand why. But they did. And even now, their lawyers have convinced the media that what they did was fine and normal. But it's not. I've never seen anyone, especially someone like Blake and Ryan, file a lawsuit like this. I've never known a person to go this far just to tear into someone's private life. This case isn't just about Justin. It's not just about harassment claims. It's about the damage being done to women, too. Women like Jen Abel, Melissa Nathan, Emily Beldoni, Natasha Heath, and all the female staff at Wayfair. What about the female agents, partners, and managers we haven't even heard about? They're hurting too. It's not just Justin or Jamie. Even Jed Wallace suffered. He had a heart attack. Justin ended up in the hospital with a spinal infection. And what's Blake doing? She's off in Europe, smiling on red carpets, promoting her new film, being named one of Time's most influential people because she gave away money 7 years ago to clean up after a wedding held on a plantation. Meanwhile, she and Ryan are acting like none of this happened. They're playing the victims, but they sure aren't acting like it. And during all of this, Justin, his team, his family, and his friends are being treated like they don't belong in society, just because two famous people with lots of money and power made it their goal to ruin him and everyone who stood by him. This case isn't just about Justin. It's about someone being treated unfairly. It's about how men can be victims, too. And when someone says, "I won't give in, I won't be pushed around," they deserve to be heard. I hope someday the big media outlets realize that men and women can both hurt others, and that women can lie just like men. In Hollywood, false claims get thrown around like weapons. I just want the truth to come out. For Justin, for Wayfair, for their families, their friends, and everyone affected. People like Jen Abel, Melissa Nathan, Jed Wallace, Jamie Heath, Steve Sarowitz, they all deserve justice. We'll keep speaking up for them. We'll keep looking for answers. We'll keep telling the truth. And as always, thank you for watching. Thanks to Candace Owens for mentioning me on your podcast and on Instagram. We don't agree on much, politically or otherwise, but we agree on this, and sometimes that's all it takes. One truth can bring people together. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a post. Thank you again. Bye, guys.